Tonight, there's growing concern that veterans are getting sick from exposure to toxic chemicals. The source could be an old Russian army base used by the U.S. military after 9/11.
A soldier from our area is now leading the battle for truth and accountability. Here's KCTV5 investigative reporter Angie Roccono.
This is Scott Welsh. He's retired U.S. Army intelligence, and he's from our area. But for 6 months, he was stationed at Karshi-Kanabad Air Base in Uzbekistan, and the soldiers there called it K2. K2 was a hub of operations for the U.S. in the fight against terrorism because it's so close to Afghanistan. But soldiers like Scott are now going public with allegations of cancer and a cover-up by the U.S. government.
You'd stomp and the dust would just fly up and get in your nose, and I mean, who knows what you're breathing.
Scott Welsh says young soldiers were focused on war.
You had a mission to do. You didn't think about it then, but now that we're back and we're all coming down with everything, you're thinking, oh, that was something to think about.
Soldiers at K2 coped with heat and freezing temperatures. Rain meant instant floods. They'd snicker and send out floats. But the warning signs were literally there.
And that was right by the PT track, right where we ran PT. You know, you'd run laps and just run right by that sign. You'd think, oh, okay, there's a sign.
There was a sign by the pond, too. Soldiers laughed and called it Skittles Pond.
Because of the colors, yeah.
Scott snapped several photos because the color was so intense. He took photos of the tent city and this picture after a giant hole appeared at the front of his 6-man tent. A pellet solved the problem.
I mean, a gigantic hole. And we're like, that's strange. So we just started using the back tent flap. And we didn't ask any questions because we just had to, continue mission and go to work do what we do every day.
Scott was stationed here for 6 months when he was in his early 30s.
I thought I'd just come home and carry on life as usual. You know, you get on that plane in the middle of the night to come home and you think, okay, I'll just go home and go back to work and everything will be normal.
Scott says that didn't happen. His life changed. He's now 51 and dealing with chronic problems.
Disc degeneration, headaches, daily headaches, skin rashes all the time. Kidney stones, I get kidney stones constantly.
Scott was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2013 and had surgery. 2 other close buddies he served with have thyroid problems too. He eventually found a Facebook group of K2 veterans. Many are sick and blame K2. Thousands of members have joined the online group.
Cancer is the biggest. Cancer is huge.
10% self-report some type of cancer. 2 soldiers started this closed Facebook page. 1 is now dead.
It was eye-opening. It was pretty huge.
Scott's new mission is to track reported illnesses and deaths in a spreadsheet.
We had no protective gear whatsoever.
So far, he's learned 12 K2 soldiers have died, 10 from cancer.
We had no respirators, no anything.
Other soldiers are digging for documents. Some are classified. They claim those show K2 is clearly more than an old army base. It was a toxic dump site for the Russians.
They buried nuclear waste, chemicals, fuels, mustard gas. It was just where they buried all their excess.
The Department of Defense acknowledges K2 has a history in this report sent to doctors. Soldiers reported a bad smell and black goo at the site. This document blames a leaking Soviet-era underground fuel distribution system. It acknowledges asbestos and low-level radioactive processed uranium in the soil and trace amounts of nerve and blister agents in some testing, but points out more recent tests are negative and claims those early tests were likely false positives. So it advises doctors to show concerned patients respect and appreciation. Thank them for that service. The conclusion is to advise veterans there is no health consequence. The protective risk control measures were effective. Reports show the U.S. government spread clean soil on top of contamination and believes that capped any toxins. Soldiers call it a literal cover-up that didn't work due to floods and strong winds.
The VA looks at it as, well, it's not a hazardous site, so we aren't going to give them benefits because the government hasn't declared it a hazardous site.
Scott and his fellow soldiers say they want the truth about K2 and say secret documents reveal the government absolutely knew of the dangers and did little to warn or protect soldiers.
The government is not releasing anything about the area because the government doesn't want to release information about the area.
Soldiers like Scott are now battling for accountability. This group is making progress. Earlier this month, the House Oversight Committee demanded more information about K2. They point to a limited U.S. Army study which shows if you compare the soldiers at K2 to soldiers stationed in Korea, there is elevated levels of lymphatic cancer. In fact, it's about 5 times the amount. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News. We were stunned when veteran Scott Welsh came to us and reported 12 former soldiers who served at K2 died, mostly from cancer. And tonight that number has grown to 21 deaths, once again, mostly from cancer. This is self-reported from former soldiers who say the VA needs to acknowledge and address what's happening.
I'm adding 10 illnesses every day. There are several people that are suffering illnesses that are paying out of their own pocket. There are several deaths that were needless because they didn't get the treatment they needed.
Scott Welsh and fellow soldiers say they will be heard. Their numbers are growing.
Oh, it's quadrupled.
Immediately upon arrival, people were recognizing that this was not a safe place.
My family is really no cancer, and yet I got kidney cancer.
Veterans are going public across the nation. A coordinated push which recently included knocking on doors in D.C. Here's the point. These former soldiers aren't going anywhere.
Agent Orange took 20 to 30 years to be recognized, and we're coming up on the 18-year mark.
K2 is in Uzbekistan. It was an important hub of operations in America's fight against terrorism. Welsh spent 3 months there. He described the base for us about 3 weeks ago.
And you know, you'd stomp and the dust would just fly up and get in your nose, and I mean, who knows what you're breathing.
Soldiers slept in crude tents and joked about the living conditions, which ranged from flooding to windstorms. They nicknamed this bright green pond Skittles Pond.
Because of the colors, yeah.
The warning signs were literally there.
And that was right by the PT track, right where we ran PT. You know, you'd run laps and just run right by that sign. You'd think, oh, okay, there's a sign.
Welsh and others say this Army base sat on top of a Russian toxic waste dump, and initial cleanup efforts, which included laying down fresh gravel and dirt to make it safe, failed. Sick veterans say look at the photos, follow the trail of government documents, and examine their data. Something happened here. It needs to be acknowledged and addressed.
Cancer is the biggest. Cancer is huge.
Welsh was diagnosed and treated for thyroid cancer. 10% of the group members report some type of cancer. Others describe other health issues. Scott is tracking death and illnesses as former soldiers and their widows self-report information directly to his group. But government agencies don't trust his spreadsheet.
They're discarding all the data that we've compiled of the illnesses when they have no data of their own.
What do you have to say to K2 veterans now struck with cancer?
VA Secretary Robert Wilkie has recently publicly acknowledged K2 concerns. He was asked about it at a recent media event.
I want all veterans who've been there and who feel they need to see us to come forward.
The VA should be making the effort to recognize the issues, not the individuals.
But former soldiers like Scott want a firm plan. A key leader they reached out to is Kansas Senator Jerry Moran. His office sent us this statement. Senator Moran is deeply concerned by the reports of the conditions at K2 and the toxic substances that service members might have come in contact with. As chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, Senator Moran is dedicated to ensuring all veterans receive access to the care they deserve. Senator Moran has had conversations with the Department of Veterans Affairs regarding this issue, and the VA is working with the Department of Defense to locate veterans who served at K2 and to collect information regarding their illnesses.
K2 was used by American forces for 4 years. Thousands and thousands of American servicemen and women were stationed here. We will keep you posted on what happens next. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News. Meet Scott Welsh. He's a cancer survivor, and he's been tracking sickness and deaths among his fellow veterans. This concerns Karshi-Kanabad Air Base, or K2. That's in Uzbekistan, and it was used by the U.S. government in the fight against terrorism. Today, Welsh testified his information is real and credible.
There were rumors floating around that contaminants existed on the base. There were signs posted that stated, "Keep out chemical agents." There were ponds that glowed green. All of these were literally feet from where we lived, worked, and performed physical training.
Scott Welsh served at K2 for 6 months.
I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2014.
Welsh testified about the information he's been collecting. More than 1,300 soldiers report some sort of illness they suspect is the result of exposure. 400 have cancer. That's more than 10% of the group. This includes 30 brain cancers. 30 families of K2 soldiers have reported deaths.
We stomped through the dust.
Welsh sat next to a widow named Kim Brooks.
And I'm here today because my husband can't be.
Her husband, Tim, died of brain cancer.
Tim had been angry to be so sick, so young, when he had so much living still to do.
He left behind a wife and 4 children.
I do wonder how many have already died and are possibly not going to be counted.
Many fell ill while they were deployed. Headaches, vision problems, a wide variety of GI disorders, skin rashes. Several literally had hair fall out in patches.
Testimony was brutal. Former soldiers said dangers were obvious.
Everybody knew that at some point we would need direct evidence to prove that we had been there and that we'd been exposed to what we were exposed to, because people think we're crazy when we tell them what happened.
It's just rather mind-boggling and chilling.
Congressional members are calling on the VA and the Department of Defense to reveal what they knew and when they knew it.
The VA has thus far repeatedly failed or refused to acknowledge their illnesses as service-connected disabilities.
It's not going well. The VA has only released a limited health assessment. The DoD says it will give a detailed response in 3 months.
Former soldiers want K2 recognized like Agent Orange finally was. So if they get sick, they will get the medical coverage and benefits they deserve. Right now, that's not happening. The government doesn't acknowledge there were any hazards at K2, so cancers and illnesses are not considered service-connected. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.